Okay, Victor Momo from Excel Moments, and in this video I want to complicate a simple problem just to show you how to handle blanks that show up as zeros when used in dynamic array functions. Okay, so this is a problem that was posed by a good friend, Crispo Nwagi. He's an Excel MVP from Kenya. He calls it the Easy Sunday Excel Challenges. How easy they are? It's a different conversation, but that's what he calls it. Okay, let's get into Excel. So basically here he has two asks of us. He says filter out empty columns, solution must be dynamic. So his source data is this, good enough. He already made it an Excel table. So I think he has helped us at least slightly, to make it dynamic in the sense that if you add rows or add columns, this is going to expand accordingly. The only thing is that in your formula, you don't need to hard code things so that you don't make, a dynamic, expression pretty much static. He says filter out empty columns. So what we need to do basically is to go column by column, and just do a count of how many cells they are not blank, which is basically using the count A function. Some call it counter, but I call it count A. Okay, so if I'm including the headers in my function, then it means that, for this ones, I would say if it is greater than 1, right? So because if I have this column and I count and it's greater than 1, it means that there's something beyond just salary there. So there's something else in there. So that would be my, criteria for the filter. Okay. So if I were not including, the header rows, then basically I can just say do a count. So anyone that shows me at least 1, obviously, has something in there. So it's that simple. So we're going to use the filter function, and then we're going to layer within that, the by call. The by call is just an expression that, performs whatever it is that you've given it column by column. Okay. So let's see what it looks like. So we basically do a filter, and then we give it the source data, which is everything here, nothing new there. Then we feed it with by call, which we are saying here, do this column by column. We feed it with the same array. Okay, and it says, what do you want me to do for each column? I want you to do a count A. So basically in each column, I want you to count how many cells are not blank. Okay, and the only ones I'm interested in are those that are greater than 1. Okay, so once it's greater than 1, it means it has something beyond the header. Right, close. Okay, and then that's our result. So I basically have solved the problem. Those are the columns, and if maybe data shows up here, for example, in the salary column, you can see that salary is automatically added, so it's dynamic. If I delete this, it goes. The only difference between what I have and what Crispo has is that you can see that the blank cells here are formatted as zeros. Okay, so you can see that this here is actually blank, it's blank, but they show up as zeros. So I may want to handle that a couple of ways, but I'll start with a cheeky one and then show you some of the problems you may have with that in layers, and then I'll show you how to solve it finally. So one function I like to use a lot is text function. When you use the text function with formulas, you can choose how you format the output. So I basically, looking at this here, I can see that the source data has just either text or blanks. Okay, so I can write my text function in a way that I say, the text cells should show up as they are. Then, of course, the blank cells, which I would treat in the text function as zeros, which is what I see here, should show up as nothing as well. So what I can do is this. Okay, I come here and then I'll say I want to put the text function. So text, okay, and I go to the end and I now tell it how I'm going to format my text function. Of course, it's broken into 4 categories: how you format positive numbers, negative numbers, zeros, and then text. Okay, so in double quotes, we start with the positive numbers. If I don't have any of them here and I feel I don't want to bother with them, I'm like, hey, skip them, make them blank. So I go with a semicolon. Semicolon basically says I've moved to the next one, which is negative numbers. Negative numbers, make them blank. Okay, good. Then zeros. Now, what do I do with them? I say, yeah, those are the ones I'm really interested in. Make them blank. I don't do anything. The last one is for text. For text, I use @ basically to say return them exactly the way they are. So close and then close. Okay. So now you see that with that, we've solved the problem, right? It kind of looks like what Crispo wants. So that's good. And you're like, hey, Victor, end of the video. Let's sign out. But here, what happens if something changes in the source data? So for example, in the salary column, we have 2412. Okay, if this happens, you can see that yes, my formula recognizes that the salary column is no more empty, so it adds it in here, but it doesn't show those numbers. Why doesn't it show them? Because I formatted them to say, hey, I don't want to see anything for positive and negative. Okay, so I need to fix that. I can go back here, and then here For positives, I may use, you know, the pound, which is just give me what it is, right? For the negative, which is the next one, I can say minus pound, and then 0 still remains blank. The text still remains that way. Okay, so now you can see that we have you know, what we want. There are two problems still. The first one is that if I add zeros in here where I add an actual 0, so if this was not a salary column, maybe 0 as a salary doesn't make sense. If it was a net profit column, for example, and I say 0, right? Now that 0 doesn't show up, but that 0 should show up, because I mean, if I say the profit is 0, it basically means something, right? So that one doesn't show up because I've said zeros should be formatted, you know, as blanks. Then the other problem is that this is seen as text. So if you look at the status bar, you can see that it's going to be showing you a count instead of, you know, a sum. Okay, so those are just the drawbacks, you know, for you know, the text function. So there's no way right now to be able to distinguish between zeros, you know, and, you know, blanks that show up as zeros. Okay, so I may have to ditch, you know, the text in this case, right? So I come out and I say, okay, maybe I need to think of something else. So let's get out of the text, and then let's get this portion out, and let's just see what it looks like. Okay, so you can see now that we have, you know, 2412, you have 0. This 0 is an actual 0. These blanks are also showing up as zeros. Now we can't even tell, you know, what is what. Okay, so what we are going to use here is the obvious answer that most of you already figured out. And you're like, Victor, why are you dancing around this point? Simply to use, you know, an if. What's happening here is that these values are actually blank. I mean, the ones that are blank here, they're actually blank here. But when you use them in, like, you know, dynamic array functions, right, it's kind of trying to coerce the blanks into, you know, a known data type, which is, am I coercing it to numbers or coercing it to text? Okay, so, and basically coerces it, and instead of, you know, showing you the blanks, it's then showing you as numbers, you know, which is 0, but the underlying values are still actually blank. Okay, so the underlying values are blank, but it's more like when you do like formatting, right? So the value in the cell can be 1.5. You can format it to show up as 2. But when you use it for a calculation, you know, the 1.5 is what's used. Okay, so that's what we're going to take advantage of in this case. So I'm going to come in here, and then I'm just going to, you know, make this something. I'm going to say let result be everything you're seeing. So everything you're seeing here is called result. Okay, so what do you want to do with the result? I'm going to use an if. Okay, and I'm going to say if the result is blank, that's this, because I know even though it's showing me 0, it's actually blank, right? If result is blank, you know, then make it truly blank. Otherwise, give me the results. So what will happen is that these that are zeros here, this one that is actually a 0 here, would not be blank. So it will show up as a 0, while the blank are truly blank. So don't be deceived by what the dynamic array spits out, as in at the back of it, it's actually, you know, seeing it as a blank. So let's close the last bracket, you know, and then, okay, and you can see that now we have it exactly the way we want it. These are numbers, okay, you know, the 0 shows up, and then the blanks are truly blank, and the problem is solved. Okay, so if you like my convolution and complication of a simple problem, please give this video a like. Don't forget to also subscribe to the channel Excel Moments. Thanks, Crispo, for this example, and I'll see you guys later.